Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Atlanta, Georgia, it's time for High Velocity Radio.
Welcome to the High Velocity Radio Show, where we celebrate top performers producing better results in less time. Stone Payton here with you this afternoon. You guys are in for a real treat. Please join me in welcoming to the broadcast with North Star Coaching, Kerri Burchill. How are you?
So pumped to be here, Stone. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's an absolute delight to have you on the broadcast. I got a ton of questions. I know we're not going to get to them all, but I think a great place to start would be if you could paint a little bit of a picture, give us an overview, if you will, for me and our listeners, mission, purpose. What are you and your crew really out there trying to do for folks?
Yeah, absolutely. So my tagline, which seems to be ever evolving as I kind of learn more about my audience and their needs, but I help leaders and teams slow down to go fast and achieve ambitious results. So I kind of talk about the day-to-day firefighting, the spin, just the world is so fast-paced. And sometimes we just are constantly dealing with the surface things. We never really get to the bottom of what that spin is to figure out the stuff that needs to happen so we really do the leadership work that makes the difference and achieves those ambitious goals.
I got to say, at first it sounds a little counterintuitive, right? Slow down to go fast. Do some of your clients, especially in the early going, do they bristle with that at first?
On one hand, they're like, oh, that sounds lovely, slowing down. And on the other hand, they're just, I can't. I can't take 4 hours away with my leadership team and dive into this work. Right? I can't or there's, even if they commit to the 4 hours, they're often pulled out. Like it's so hard to slow down, and yet they recognize that they need help doing that.
So what's the backstory? How'd you get in this line of work?
Yeah, oh my goodness, right? I sometimes just get butterflies where I am and where I came from. So I'm a middle school teacher originally, quickly promoted into leadership roles, and then my partner and I are unable to have kids, and that sort of gave us some freedom that maybe families don't have. And we put a couple of rods in a fire. I applied for a principalship on a NATO base in Belgium, and my partner applied for med school. And we sort of said, whatever happens, we're just going to roll with it. So long story short, I say we did med school, which really resulted in that 9-period time of my partner doing medicine, of me working in 3 different countries, 6 different cities, and 9 different jobs. And I really honed in on leadership. I saw so many places that were really functional and dysfunctional, and started to look at this whole idea of slowing down and what value that can give, and how people show up when they're spinning and going really fast. And so worked in healthcare at the end of med school, finished a PhD, did a master's, more education as well as experience, and then thought, geez, I really want to do this on my own. I really want to help a diverse population, different industries. The concepts are the same. Leadership is challenging no matter where you are. That's where I just want to find my sweet spot. And so I stepped out of corporate America, and here I am.
What was that transition like? I have to believe it would be a little intimidating to go from that corporate environment, because you have to practice your craft, but you're also running a business and you got to go get the business to practice the craft, right?
Yeah. Sometimes I think I started in a unionized public middle school setting, and now I sort of negotiate prices and, just really stretch myself in ways I never would have ever thought I would have done when I was in that really sort of tunneled education career. You teach, you become assistant principal, like it's pretty planned out for you. I was nervous at first. In 2018, I was feeling really frustrated with the rate of change of the organization I was working in. And just to try to find a sunny spot, I had a couple of clients just on the side, very transparent with my boss in the corporate setting, and realized maybe I've got some talent in this area. Maybe there's a need for how I can help people slow down. And so over time, I kind of got busier and busier, and then we moved to San Antonio a few years ago, and I just said, let's try this full time and just see how it goes. So it was a slow play, and I wish I would have done it sooner, honestly.
So when with your affinity for education and knowledge and being a life learner, did you decide to get formally credentialed, like go through some sort of coaching certification process to get ready for
Yeah.
this?
Yeah. I did. And when I've got 15 years of post-secondary education, 11 of them full-time student. And when I think of those 15 years, probably my most applied and I'd say valuable training was my coach training. So I got it back in 2008 when we had just left Canada where I was teaching. And the only reason why I even knew about coaching is because when we decided to move and start med school, I started interviewing people that I thought had cool jobs because I was paralyzed. Like I couldn't imagine myself doing something else. My mom was a teacher. I'm a teacher. It just was beyond me to sort of think of what I could do. And one of the people I interviewed is a coach, and her job was to liaise community members with the school kids when there was a conflict in the community that bled into the school. And she talked about her coaching skills, and I thought, wow, that's really cool. And so that was my impetus to sort of get the coach training, but I didn't use it for a long time just because of our moving around, and I really didn't understand how to get clients. And so it was on pause. Even though I valued it, I didn't apply it until probably, I don't know, 8 years after I actually got it.
So now that you've been at it a while, what are you finding the most rewarding? What's the most fun about it these days for you?
What is All of it's so fun, honestly. I spend maybe 50% of my time training and development, 25% keynote, and 25% coaching. And each part of that is just so different and unique. I love how these leaders are so committed to helping serve their teams, helping make an impact wherever they work. Like it's just an honor to be trusted and be a guide on the side with these people doing this really dynamic work. So I've got police departments and city council members and recruitment companies in healthcare, and it's just all over the place, manufacturing plants. So it's really fun, and they're all just so brave doing hard work. I think maybe that's my favorite part is just seeing these people lean into it so much.
So how do you get the clients? How do you get the new business? And maybe speak to how you got the new business early on, because it's probably a little different than the way it is at this point in your career. But I don't, the reason I'm asking is I find that a lot of people in the professional services arena, that is, I'll be as gracious as I can. The greatest opportunity for improvement near term is, figuring out the business side of their work, right? Like getting the work.
Yeah. Back when I officially incorporated in 18 and to now, 100% of my business has been referral. So I do have a presence on social media. I find that people look on social media to double check that I'm legit, but they've been referred to me from somebody and then they kind of scope out. So I've never gotten business directly from social media, which is interesting even, in all of those years. And so when I first started, I remember going to it was one of those like networking groups, like a Lions or a Rotary Club or something like that. And you had to go around the circle and sort of identify who you were. And it was the first time that I said, like, I'm Kerri Burchill and I'm a leadership coach and consultant. Like it was awkward coming off of my tongue. And after that meeting, somebody, networking afterwards said, hey, we're looking for somebody to put in a proposal to do some leadership development at our company. Why don't you put in a proposal? I'm like, okay, yeah, okay. I go home, I Google, what is a proposal? Like, that's how little I knew. But it was the connections that made it. And so I had recently attended a conference, and the MC at the conference was just dynamic and super open. And so I actually reached out to her and said, hey, I've been asked to do a proposal. I don't even know if you send these out in Word or are they PDF? Like, do you have a proposal that you could share with me? And so that sort of helped me put it together. And of course, one client tells another client, and it just keeps snowballing from there.
So let's dive into the work a little bit. The mechanism, or probably in your case, mechanisms for executing on the work and actually getting in there and serving these folks one-on-one, group, facilitation. Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, all of it. All of it. I really love Donald Miller and one of his books, Marketing Made Simple. It's just an oldie goldie. I remember reading it, and he talks in there about framing work around problem, solution, results. Now, of course, he's talking about marketing as I identify a problem that people have, think about solutions, and then think about the results. And I've sort of taken that a level deeper to think, what are the problems that my clients identify? Not what I think I can do for them, but what the clients are ready to do for themselves. And so it's so just sometimes like really difficult for me to be present and to stay in that slow moment with my clients, because of course on the outside it's easy to see everything really clearly. Um, to have those discussions either with the leaders or with the people I'm coaching with one-on-one or with the team members, to sort of say like, hey, in your world, what's working well and what needs to kind of be shifted. And that's the starting spot of anything that I would create. Like I don't have any canned programs or anything. Everything I do is always tailored to that environment and that group of people. So really getting them to put in their words what the problem is. And that tells me what their readiness is to do the work that, that I see needs to be done. And they may get to the stuff that I think is important later on. And I may be surprised and learn that what I thought they needed is actually not what they needed once we slowed down and really got into it with them.
This willingness to meet the client where they are just sounds so wholly consistent with what you touched on early in the conversation about slow down to go fast. I would think, I know for me, and I would think for others, that would require some discipline, some rigor, some structure, it really does have to become a discipline, right? But that does fall right in line with your value system, your ethos, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. One of those, I actually was just put out a poll recently on LinkedIn on, what coaching skill do you think is most valuable? And the group that voted came back saying like being present was the most valuable in a coach. And so I think mastering that as a coach, I just got my MCC, which is the highest level that the International Coach Federation gives. You have to have something like 2,500 hours of paid coaching, etc. And I was not present in the beginning, I'll tell you that. I wanted to jump ahead of my clients and tell them what their problem was and tell them how they should fix it. And really slowing down to kind of say, hey, this is their journey and it's my privilege to be a guide on the side, but I'm not the driver. And I certainly don't know all the environments and the details of their trench. So of course I should trust the client. They're living it. They know way more than I do. So just slowing down to get in rhythm with them.
Do you find with some of the people that you run into that there are sometimes some, I don't know, myths may be a little bit of a strong word, but misconceptions, misinformation, incomplete information about coaching as a domain that you have to find yourself educating what coaching is or can be before you can really serve sometimes?
Yeah, all the time. Yeah. And I think people find coaching romantic because it sounds like someone's going to come in and swoop in and tell you the right answer. And you have coaching, which is really where the client drives the conversation. And my job as a coach is to ask those questions, to help them slow down and really figure out in their trench and their experiences with their gifts and talents, where do they want to go, and hold them accountable to get there. Therapy, right, is more of the psychological side of things. Mentoring is where I tell you the answer. So I think where coaching, kind of gets a bit muddy is you think of an athletic coach, which is definitely somebody telling you what to do, praising you when you do it well, etc. In sort of leadership coaching, executive coaching, it is very much where, I can be the mirror to help you see what's going on, but I'm not the one telling you what to do and the one sort of driving what you should do.
So talk about the keynote work, because that too seems, I'm enamored with that idea of getting in front of a whole bunch of people and knocking their socks off, and all, which is probably the wrong mindset. Should probably be focused on serving them. But was it a little intimidating early on? And what have you learned from speaking to groups like that?
Yeah. So interesting. Again, like referral. So somebody was president of an association. They asked me to come to their national conference. I had 20 minutes on the stage, my first keynote, and it just kind of blossomed and took hold from there. And so the keynoting has been a really great opportunity for me to flesh out some leadership concepts that I've been rolling around, like the spin, that day-to-day firefighting, and really this challenge that as people are caught in the spin, what they end up sort of showing are what I call ask-hole behaviors, ASK. ask-all behavior.
Okay, you got to talk more about that.
So when I'm stressed and I'm in the day-to-day spin and I'm trying to get tons more done than what's realistic, I'm going to ask people to do work for me. I'm going to ask them questions that I knew, but I kind of forgot because I'm just stressed and I'm going somewhere. I'm going to ask them to join committees that maybe I could do, but I'm just going to ask, right? And I'm going to push all this work out when really I have the skills and talents to do it if I slowed down and got strategic around the right work and kind of the bonus work and the stuff I should not even care about. And so thinking about helping leaders in a keynote to really slow down and identify, hey, maybe I'm doing everything that assholes ask me to do instead of slowing down and helping that asshole figure out what they need to do to own their problems and move forward. And so how, as a leader, how on earth am I ever going to slow down if I'm doing all of this stuff that's asked of me all day long? Like I'm doing my work and 10 other people's work.
Mm.
So the keynote have been really helpful in kind of floating out some of those concepts and framing it in a way that I can tell the audience is like, oh yeah, I'm an asshole, and they'll give audience examples and the room's roaring and we're all in it, right? We're all spinning. We all got assholes around us, and it's hard to slow down in those moments when somebody asks you to do something really simple or even the hard stuff. You want to jump in and help them when really what we can be is more like a coach with them, helping that person slow down and figure out what their path is, what variables in their environment they can leverage, etc. But as servant leaders, I think sometimes we often become servants and just do it all to everyone's risk of burnout and lack of innovation and a bunch of unintended consequences.
So you authored a book around this topic, and probably knowing you, probably a field guide and all kind of stuff. What was that? And I do want to dive into the book a little bit and the structure and how you recommend people use it. But I'll back up a minute. What was that experience like? Just sitting down and committing those ideas to paper. Like did some of it come together super easy and other pieces more difficult, or what was that whole thing like?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, it was not the original book idea.
Huh.
So I was running a leadership academy where we statistically measured our soft skill development, and I interviewed people and got like IRB approval, like very empirical sort of research. And nobody was really biting. I mean, I thought it was the sexiest thing alive, right? This was super fun, and I'm all in the nitty gritty. I'm starting to code the data and blah, blah, blah. And then a leader was complaining to me about all these people asking them to do things and ask this and F. Finally, they're just a bunch of assholes. And I'm like, bing. And so jumped, really like left the first draft in the data. I've still got drawers full of these transcripts and blah, blah, blah. And dove into the asshole work and started speaking about it, doing some webinars, podcasts, and it just took a life of its own. And I framed the asshole framework. I trademarked the word asshole. Crazy. And I've got a second book diving deeper into some of the concepts already on the go. And you'll laugh at this, Stone. The most productive space for me to write is sitting in an airport gate.
Wow.
Yeah. So I just learned a ton of stuff about myself that I just did not know. So I'm doing all these keynotes and traveling a little more than I might like. And I thought, well, I've got to make productive use of this time. It turns out that I can just crank out stuff waiting for an airplane.
I would think having the book, doing the keynote work, appearing on media platforms where you kind of share your story and promote your work or promote the work, that's got to really lend itself again to the authority and the credibility. So when people do meet you in a variety of different ways, maybe you don't get business from being out there in the social channels, but then they turn around and go, "Oh, I'm gonna go check this Kerri chick out," right? And then they're like, "Oh, okay, yeah." Like I guess my question is, what has the book done for you? It sounds like it's clearly serving other people, but it sounds like it served you as well to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Just slowing down the theme to write the book and organize it, and the vulnerability of asking my, inside circle to just don't hold back, give me feedback. All of that has been really validating and stretching. And, when I speak or give people the book, they buy the book. I'm looking at Amazon royalties, like all of that just is so humbling to me because it is just simply about helping people navigate the messiness of leadership today. And that's my big goal.
I bet you're finding as you write, as you speak, as you facilitate, as you deliver the one-on-one work and the group work, I bet you find that doing the work while you are certainly serving them, I bet you continue just to solidify and crystallize your own thinking and explore new ideas. It's a virtuous circle, my partner would call it.
Yes, it is. I've got a book club that I'm working with right now. And when I listen to them kind of talk through how they're applying some of the concepts and wrestling with it, I mean, that's really a big impetus for book number 2. Like I see where book number 1 introduces the concepts and goes over the ethical framework and the 6 steps, but I see the need for those really challenging employees or team members or bosses, what maybe not what, but how can some of the concepts in book number 1 leading out of the ethical trap really lead into book number 2 to really empower leaders more with those extra challenging circumstances that we all feel a bit paralyzed to deal with?
It's interesting that you mentioned the term book club because one of the things I'm envisioning, while I certainly may get a tremendous amount of value from reading the book or listening to an audio version of it or visiting with you, I would think as a member of a management team or some department, if we were all reading the book in parallel and then we gathered periodically to talk about how we are applying or questions we have about how that's applying in Stone's world, that I'll bet you that I'd be willing to bet that peer-to-peer exchange around this as a catalyst could be extremely powerful. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it creates a shared language. So the groups that I've done book clubs with, they tell and come back and report to me that, no, we were spinning in a meeting last week and we said, we're spinning. And then they all laugh and they say, Kerri would be so proud of us. And so it's powerful because there is a shared language. And then, one of the big things that I hope I underscored in the book is that asshole behavior comes from a good place. The employee that's kind of being a pain in the butt is doing so because they care and they're committed and they're spinning and they don't have a strategy to sort of manage that. And so it's when book clubs come together, management teams, and they read the book, it takes away some of the blame that can kind of creep in and gives people a safe place to sort of say, yeah, I'm not managing how much I care right now. And so that behavior wasn't great. And the other person can be like, yeah, because you're spinning, it's okay. And, it just gives a framework and some tools and language to neutralize what can be sort of blamey and judgy.
So I don't know when or how you find the time, but passions, interests, pursuits outside the scope of the work we're talking about. A lot of my listeners know that I like to hunt, fish, and travel and introduce other people to to the joys of outdoor living, if you will. Anything you nerd out about like that?
Yeah, gosh, I love running. I'm currently nursing a tear in my hip so that I can do the Oslo, Norway, either half or full marathon this fall. That's super fun. And I recently joined a synchronized swimming club.
Oh my.
Yeah. So never ever done anything like that. So learning and gosh, some people in my club are over 70. These women are exceptionally dynamic. So that's a stretch for me. And I'll tell you, synchronized swimming or artistic swimming, like they call it now, is as much body as it is brain. If you can't figure out your surroundings upside down, you'll lose the position. And so it's really fascinating experience to just have your brain on fire while you're trying to do these fun ballet flips and stuff. It's crazy.
So here's my prediction. Just getting to know you a little bit and knowing how you have your senses attuned to what's going on around you. I'll bet you, if you haven't already, you're gonna learn things from that experience out, in that world, and you're gonna turn around and at least speak on it, say something in your keynote. It wouldn't surprise me if you write a book, bring it to your consulting. That happens, right? That kind of thing happens.
Absolutely, there are tons of parallels with synchronized swimming and leadership. You bet.
Well, I can see a lot of analogies with being upside down and losing your orientation already.
Spinning.
Kerri, before we wrap, I'd love to leave our listeners, if we could, with I call them pro tips, just something to chew on, noodle on, might be a do or a don't or a good read, or just some things you've learned after,
Uh,
maybe getting some scar tissue over the years and having some success stories. And look, gang, the number one pro tip around any of these topics is reach out and have a conversation with Kerri or somebody on her team. But let's leave them a little something to chew on.
All right. Two things that come to mind that I just sort of think as sort of themes in my work that will resonate for your audience too. Number one, the do. Keep showing up because you never know when it's going to blow up. So while work may seem slow or you may be fretting about business, like just be you and just keep showing up because your consistency will have it blow up one day. Second thing, you're the whole package. So don't start paying thousands of dollars for this program and this service and that service and a million other things because you feel a bit deficit. You're the whole package. And you have the skills and the resources to rock whatever you want to do. And so really with a critical eye, engage in some of those extra programs that will make sense, but not all of them and not as much as you think you need because you're the whole package.
I am so glad that I asked. That sounds like marvelous counsel. So what's the best way for our listeners to continue to tap into your work, get their hands on this book, maybe have a more substantive conversation with you or somebody on your team? Let's leave them with some coordinates.
Yeah, absolutely. So everybody can find me at kerriburchill.com. And I have an Ask Hold Trap quiz that's 2 minutes and fun that people can take to kind of assess where they're at in relation to the Ask Hold Trap. Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram.
Well, Kerri, it has been an absolute delight having you on the show this evening. Thank you for your insight, your perspective, but most of all, your enthusiasm and your heart for genuinely serving people and helping them escape the ask hole.
Yeah, oh gosh, it's two like-minded people talking together, Stone. You've just been an awesome host. Thank you.
Well, it is absolutely my pleasure. All right, until next time, this is Stone Payton for our guest today, Kerri Burchill with North Star Coaching, and everyone here at the Business RadioX family saying we'll see you in the fast lane.